Beloved, understand this truth. Nothing changes in the physical realm until something shifts in the spiritual realm. Finances are not controlled merely by effort, labor, or connections. They are governed by spiritual laws. Many work hard yet struggle, not because they are lazy, but because unseen systems resist their progress. Today, as you engage this prayer, you are not begging God. You are aligning with divine order. When light comes, darkness loses power. When wisdom is released, poverty retreats. This prayer is not noise, it is an activation. As you pray, spiritual doors will open, ideas will be quickened, favor will locate you, and limitations will break. Prepare your heart. Pray with understanding. Believe with expectation. Saturday, 3 January will not pass you the same way. God is the ultimate source of all wealth and provision. And until this truth is deeply rooted in the heart of a believer, financial freedom will always seem distant. Many people assume that money responds only to effort, connections, education, or opportunity, but scripture and spiritual reality reveal something higher. Resources respond to authority, alignment, and divine order. Wealth does not originate from systems of men. It flows from God and only passes through systems. When this understanding is absent, people chase money and become exhausted. When it is present, money responds to purpose and obedience. God is not merely a giver of money. He is the owner of everything that exists. The earth and its fullness belong to him. This means that no economy, no nation, no institution, and no individual truly controls supply. Human systems may distribute resources, but they do not create them. Creation itself responds to God's command, and provision follows divine instruction. When God decides to bless a man, he does not need permission from circumstances. He simply redirects what already belongs to him. One of the reasons many believers struggle financially is not because God is unwilling, but because they subconsciously see him as an option rather than the source. They pray to God but depend entirely on salary, business, or people. The moment a job shakes or an economy shifts, fear takes over because their confidence was misplaced. When God is truly seen as the source, peace remains even in uncertainty, because provision is no longer tied to visible channels, but to an invisible but faithful God. God often allows channels to fail so that dependence can be corrected, not to punish, but to realign. When a channel becomes the source in the heart of a person, it becomes an idol. And God, in his mercy, dismantles idols so that true worship and trust can be restored. This is why some people work harder, yet see less result, while others seem to experience ease. The difference is not effort alone, it is alignment with divine order. Provision in the kingdom operates by covenant, not chance. God commits himself to those who walk in obedience, honor, and stewardship. Wealth is attracted to responsibility. When God finds a heart that understands ownership, stewardship, and purpose, he releases supply without struggle. Money follows assignment. Resources locate vision. Increase responds to trust. God does not bless randomly. He blesses deliberately. Another misunderstanding is seeing wealth as merely personal comfort. God releases provision to advance his purposes in the earth. When finances are viewed only as survival tools, they remain limited. But when they are understood as instruments for impact, service, and kingdom advancement, heaven responds. God looks for men and women who can carry resources without losing reverence. When money does not corrupt the heart, God has no reason to withhold it. God's provision is also progressive. He increases capacity before he increases supply. This is why wisdom precedes wealth. Character precedes abundance. Discipline precedes overflow. Many pray for financial breakthroughs without praying for the maturity required to sustain them. God is too faithful to give what would destroy a person. He trains before he entrusts. He builds before he releases. It is important to understand that poverty is not just lack of money, it is lack of access, knowledge, and alignment. When God becomes the source, access opens, ideas are released, strategies are revealed, relationships are divinely orchestrated. Favor speaks in places effort cannot reach. Suddenly, doors open without struggle, not because a person manipulated systems, but because the owner of all systems intervened. God's supply is not seasonal. Economies rise and fall, but God's resources are constant. This is why those who truly trust Him remain stable even in crisis. They are not careless, but they are not fearful. They plan, work, and manage. Yet their confidence is anchored in God's faithfulness, not in numbers or trends. When God is the source, lack becomes temporary, not permanent. Recognizing God as the source changes posture. Prayer becomes alignment, not desperation. Giving becomes worship, not loss. Work becomes stewardship, not slavery. Rest becomes possible because anxiety loses power. When this truth settles, in the heart, finances stop controlling emotions, decisions, and identity. Freedom begins, not when money increases, but when trust is correctly placed. When God is acknowledged as the source, provision follows naturally, consistently, and purposefully. This is the foundation of true financial transformation. Financial change does not begin with numbers, accounts, or opportunities. It begins with alignment. Spiritual alignment is the invisible order that positions a person to receive what already exists in the realm of provision. Many desire financial breakthrough, but resist the process that makes it sustainable. Without alignment, increase becomes a burden rather than a blessing. When alignment is absent, effort produces exhaustion instead of results. Alignment means that a person's values, decisions, habits, and motives agree with divine principles. Money responds to laws, and spiritual laws are higher than economic laws. When a life is misaligned, even legitimate opportunities become unproductive. This is why two people can receive the same income, yet one progresses while the other remains stuck. The difference is not salary, it is order. Heaven honors order, and disorder repels increase. One major aspect of alignment is obedience. Obedience is not about perfection, it is about submission. When a person consistently resists instruction, they unknowingly close doors that prayer alone cannot open. Financial alignment requires the humility to follow direction, even when it contradicts logic or comfort. Many pray for increase, but ignore corrections that would reposition them. Obedience realigns destiny with provision. Another critical element is integrity. Financial alignment collapses when integrity is compromised. God does not release resources into hands that lack accountability because wealth amplifies character. What is hidden in scarcity becomes obvious in abundance. This is why alignment is tested in small things before it is rewarded with much. Faithfulness with little is not symbolic, it is a qualification. When integrity is present, trust is established, and trust attracts increase. Alignment also involves mindset. Many struggle financially, not because they lack opportunity, but because their thinking is shaped by fear, limitation, and past failure. A misaligned mindset interprets life through survival rather than purpose. Spiritual alignment renews the mind, allowing a person to think beyond immediate needs and embrace long-term vision. When thinking changes, decisions change. When decisions change, outcomes change. Another dimension of alignment is stewardship. Stewardship acknowledges that nothing truly belongs to us, everything is entrusted. When this understanding is missing, money is spent emotionally rather than strategically. Aligned stewardship plans, manages and protects resources. God increases those who can manage what they already have. Overflow is attracted to order, not impulse. Where there is discipline, there is multiplication. Spiritual alignment also demands freedom from unhealthy attachments. Many are emotionally tied to money, either in love or fear. Both extremes are dangerous. Loving money produces greed. Fearing money produces anxiety. Alignment places money in its proper position as a tool, not a master. When money loses its control over emotions, clarity returns. Clear hearts make wise financial decisions. Another aspect of alignment is purpose. Resources are drawn to assignment. When a person lives aimlessly, finances wander. When purpose is clear, provision becomes intentional. God funds vision, not confusion. This is why some people receive sudden ideas, opportunities, or partnerships after discovering their calling. Alignment with purpose activates supply because heaven invests in impact. Relationships also play a role in alignment. Who you listen to, learn from, and walk with affects your financial direction. Misaligned relationships drain energy, time, and resources. Aligned relationships sharpen wisdom and open doors. God often uses people as channels of provision, but alignment determines which people have access to your life. Wrong associations can block blessings without any visible warning. Another hidden area of alignment is rest. Many believe constant labor equals progress, but exhaustion often signals misalignment. God established rhythms for work and rest because clarity is lost in fatigue. Rest realigns perspective, allowing a person to recognize opportunities they previously overlooked. A rested mind discerns better. Alignment restores balance so that effort produces results. Spiritual alignment positions a person where provision flows naturally. It does not remove responsibility, it enhances effectiveness. Work becomes fruitful. Decisions become accurate. Opportunities become timely. Financial change is no longer forced, it becomes a consequence of order. When alignment is established, increase is not chased, it is attracted. This is why financial transformation begins in the spirit. Before accounts change, alignment must be restored. When heaven and earth agree concerning a person's life, resources respond. Alignment is the gateway through which lasting financial change enters. Light is the language through which God corrects errors, dismantles limitations, and restores order. Wherever ignorance exists, struggle is sustained. Financial hardship is often not a result of laziness or lack of effort, but a symptom of darkness in understanding. When light is absent, people work sincerely yet move blindly. They repeat cycles without knowing why, make decisions without clarity, and invest energy where there is no return. Darkness does not mean evil alone. It also means lack of accurate knowledge. Ignorance has power, not because it is strong, but because it is unchallenged. What you do not understand will eventually control you. Many people are faithful, prayerful, and hardworking, yet remain stuck financially because they lack light about principles, timing, structure, and strategy. Light is what reveals why something is happening, not just that it is happening. The moment light arrives, confusion loses authority. Financial darkness manifests in many ways. Some do not understand the value of time, so they waste years. Others do not understand systems, so they depend only on effort. Some do not understand stewardship, so money leaks through poor management. Others do not understand seasons, so they force results prematurely and suffer losses. All these are not spiritual attacks alone. They are consequences of ignorance. And ignorance, no matter how sincere, produces the same result. Light destroys ignorance by revealing truth. Truth brings responsibility. Once light comes, excuses disappear. This is why many unconsciously resist light. It is easier to blame circumstances than to confront ignorance. But freedom begins the moment a person accepts that what they know determines where they go. When light comes, it exposes errors, but it also empowers correction. God does not reveal truth, shame. He reveals it to restore. In a realm of finances, light brings clarity about priorities. It shows what to pursue and what to avoid. Many people struggle because they chase quick money instead of sustainable value. Light teaches patience, process, and long-term thinking. It reveals that wealth is built, not wished. When light enters, impulsive decisions lose their appeal because wisdom becomes more valuable than speed. Light also reveals identity. Many people see themselves as victims of systems, background, or history. This mindset limits action and expectation. When light comes, a person realizes they are not powerless. They begin to see capacity, options, and potential. This shift alone can change financial outcomes. What a person believes about themselves influences what they attempt, and what they attempt determines what they attract. Another role of light is exposing invisible drains. Many finances collapse, not because income is small, but because leakage is large. Without light, people cannot identify habits, relationships, or decisions that quietly drain resources. Light brings awareness. Awareness brings correction. Correction brings stability. What is corrected consistently will eventually produce increase. Light also brings discernment. Not every opportunity is profitable, and not every delay is denial. Without discernment, people say yes to everything and end up scattered. Light teaches focus. It shows where to invest time, energy, and money. Focus multiplies effort. Scattered effort weakens even the strongest potential. When light comes, direction becomes clear. Financial ignorance is often inherited. Many repeat what they saw, not what is wise. They adopt habits without questioning outcomes. Light challenges tradition. It asks why something is done, not just how. This questioning is not rebellion, it is growth. When light confronts tradition, progress becomes possible. What worked in one season may not work in another. Light adjusts strategy without abandoning values. Light also teaches restraint. Not every desire must be satisfied immediately. Delayed gratification is a sign of wisdom. Many financial failures come from emotional spending driven by comparison or pressure. Light frees a person from the need to impress. When purpose becomes clear, validation becomes unnecessary. Money is then used intentionally rather than emotionally. Another pole. Where of light is consistency. Darkness thrives in inconsistency. Light builds habits. Small, consistent actions over time produce massive results. Many want sudden breakthroughs without daily discipline. Light teaches that growth is often quiet before it is visible. This understanding protects people from discouragement and impatience. Light restores hope. When ignorance is removed, fear loses its grip. A person begins to see that change is possible, not mystical. They realize that financial transformation is not reserved for a few, but available to those who learn, apply, and persist. Light replaces anxiety with confidence because the path forward becomes visible. When light destroys ignorance, struggle loses its justification. Progress becomes intentional. Decisions become informed. Effort becomes effective. This is why light is not optional, it is essential. Wherever light is sustained, freedom follows. Wherever ignorance remains, bondage continues. Financial liberty begins the moment light is welcomed and obeyed. Covenants with God are spiritual agreements that establish access, protection, and supply beyond human effort. A covenant is not a casual promise, it is a binding spiritual framework that authorizes God's involvement in a person's life. When covenant is understood, finances are no longer approached with anxiety or desperation, but with confidence and responsibility. Supernatural supply flows where covenant consciousness is alive. Many people desire blessings without relationship. They want results without commitment. But covenant is relational before it is transactional. It is built on trust, obedience, honor, and alignment of heart. God does not merely respond to need, he responds to covenant. This is why some receive provision even in unlikely situations, while others struggle despite having visible advantages. Covenant gives God legal access to intervene in human affairs. In covenant, God takes responsibility for supply while the believer takes responsibility for obedience and stewardship. This exchange establishes balance. God does not promise comfort without discipline, and he does not demand effort without reward. When a person walks in covenant, provision becomes a consequence, not a pursuit. Money responds to covenant positioning rather than constant striving. One powerful aspect of covenant is continuity. Human effort is seasonal, but covenant is sustained. Jobs can end, businesses can fail, and economies can shift, but covenant remains intact. This is why those who understand covenant are not shaken by temporary loss. They know that supply is not tied to a single source, but anchored in a faithful God. What looks like an end often becomes a redirection when covenant is active. Covenant also introduces the principle of honor. Honor is how covenant is preserved. When honor is lost, covenant benefits diminish. This is why dishonor, ingratitude, and rebellion often precede financial decline. Honor is not flattery, it is recognition of divine order. When a person honors God with their resources, time, and obedience, they keep covenant active. Giving then becomes a spiritual language, not a financial loss. Another dimension of covenant is sacrifice. Covenants are established and sustained by sacrifice. Sacrifice proves value. It reveals priority. God responds to sacrifice not because he needs it, but because it demonstrates trust. When a person is willing to release what is valuable, it signals alignment with eternity rather than fear of scarcity. Covenant supply flows strongest where sacrifice is sincere. Covenant also brings access to divine instruction. God guides those he is in covenant with. This guidance often comes as wisdom, restraint, or redirection. Many financial disasters happen not because money was absent, but because instruction was ignored. Covenant gives clarity. It helps a person know when to move, when to wait, and when to withdraw. This sensitivity protects resources and preserves increase. Another benefit of covenant is exemption. While covenant does not remove challenges, it alters outcomes. Others may experience loss, but covenant people experience preservation. Others may experience delay, but covenant people experience acceleration. This is not favoritism, it is agreement. Covenant defines who God is committed to defend and supply, not emotionally, but legally in the spirit. Covenant also addresses generational limitations. Patterns of poverty, debt, and struggle often outlive individuals. Covenant interrupts these cycles by introducing a higher authority. When a person enters covenant with God, they step out of inherited limitations and into divine inheritance. What was normal in the family line loses power because a new agreement now governs outcomes. However, covenant requires consistency. Selective obedience weakens covenant confidence. When people honor God only when convenient, they undermine the very framework that sustains supply. Covenant is not about moments of faith. It is about a lifestyle of alignment. Daily decisions either strengthen or weaken covenant consciousness. Covenant also demands stewardship. God does not waste resources. When he releases supply, he expects management. Mismanagement does not cancel covenant, but it delays increase. Faithfulness proves readiness. God multiplies what is respected. When resources are handled with wisdom, gratitude, and discipline, covenant supply expands naturally. Covenant removes fear from finances. Fear thrives where provision is uncertain. Covenant establishes assurance. A person knows they are not alone in their financial journey. They understand that heaven is involved. Disconfide. NCE changes behavior, decisions, and expectations. When fear leaves, clarity enters. Supernatural supply is not magic. It is covenant working as designed. When covenant with God is honored, provision follows order. Needs are met, resources increase, and peace is sustained. Covenant does not promise instant wealth, but it guarantees faithful supply. When covenant is activated and maintained, finances respond to divine authority rather than human limitation. Obedience is a spiritual posture that positions a believer to access what grace has already provided. Many view obedience as restriction, but in spiritual reality, obedience is alignment with divine order. Financial favor is not random, it is a response to alignment. When obedience is present, life moves into harmony with laws that govern increase. When obedience is absent, even sincere effort can produce resistance instead of results. Obedience is not about understanding everything before acting. Often, divine instruction comes before full clarity. Those who wait to agree with instruction before obeying delay their own progress. Financial breakthroughs are frequently connected to simple, consistent acts of obedience that seem insignificant at first. What looks small in instruction often carries large consequence in outcome. Heaven rewards response, not debate. One of the greatest enemies of obedience is familiarity. People hear truth repeatedly but treat it casually. They know what to do yet postpone action. Over time, delay becomes disobedience. Financial stagnation often begins when instruction is heard but not practiced. Knowledge without action produces frustration. Obedience turns knowledge into results. Obedience also demands humility. Pride resists correction. Many financial struggles persist because people refuse to adjust habits, spending patterns, or priorities. God often speaks through conviction, counsel, or circumstances, pointing out areas that need correction. When these warnings are ignored, losses follow, not because God punishes, but because divine protection operates within obedience. Outside alignment, exposure increases. Another aspect of obedience is consistency. Occasional obedience does not produce lasting favor. Financial favor flows where obedience becomes a lifestyle. This includes faithfulness in work, honesty in dealings, discipline in management, and honor in giving. When obedience is selective, outcomes become unstable. When obedience is sustained, favor becomes predictable. Obedience also trains sensitivity. Those who obey quickly hear more clearly. Spiritual perception sharpens through response. In finances, this sensitivity becomes invaluable. It helps a person recognize opportunities, avoid traps, and discern timing. Many financial mistakes are not due to lack of opportunity, but due to insensitivity to warning signs. Obedience preserves discernment. Another dimension of obedience is trust. Obedience proves who is truly in control. When instruction contradicts logic or comfort, obedience requires trust in God's wisdom above personal reasoning. This trust releases peace even before results appear. Financial anxiety often fades when obedience is practiced because the burden of control is surrendered. Trust shifts responsibility to God while maintaining human diligence. Obedience also attracts favor from people. Integrity, reliability, and diligence are forms of obedience that build reputation. Favor often comes to relationships, recommendations, and opportunities. People trust those who demonstrate consistent character. Obedience in unseen moments eventually produces visible rewards. What is done privately shapes what is released publicly. Disobedience, on the other hand, leaks favor. It may not show immediately, but over time it weakens momentum. Small compromises accumulate into major setbacks. Financial collapse rarely happens suddenly. It unfolds gradually through repeated neglect of instruction. Obedience acts as a protective system, preventing avoidable losses. Another important truth is that obedience does not cancel effort, it directs it. God does not bless laziness. Obedience empowers work by aligning it with purpose. Effort without obedience is exhausting. Effort with obedience is productive. The same work done in alignment yields greater results with less stress. This is the mystery of favor. Obedience also prepares a person for increase. Wealth amplifies habits. If disobedience exists in small matters, increase will magnify its consequences. God often withholds expansion not to deny, but to protect. Obedience proves readiness. When God sees consistency, he entrusts more. Increase follows maturity. Another overlooked aspect of obedience is timing. Doing the right thing at the wrong time can still produce loss. Obedience includes patience. Waiting for instruction to unfold prevents premature decisions. Many opportunities become dangerous when entered too early. Obedience teaches restraint until the moment is right. Obedience positions a believer under divine favor. Favor is not emotional, it is lawful. It operates where alignment exists. When obedience becomes a lifestyle, finances respond naturally. Doors open without manipulation. Provision flows without anxiety. Peace remains even during process. Financial favor is sustained by obedience, not shortcuts. When obedience is honored, favor follows. This is not a formula. It is a principle. Obedience positions a person where heaven can confidently release increase without destroying character. That positioning is the secret behind lasting financial transformation. Wisdom is superior to money because money answers problems tempora. Really. But wisdom addresses the root of outcomes. Money can solve immediate needs, but wisdom determines whether those needs will return. A person can receive money without wisdom and lose it quickly, but a person with wisdom can start with little and still build lasting wealth. This is why wisdom is described as the principal thing. It governs decisions, timing, priorities, and direction, all of which directly influence financial outcomes. Many people pursue money as a goal, not realizing that money is a reward, not a foundation. When money becomes the focus, pressure increases and judgment weakens. Wisdom, on the other hand, produces clarity. It teaches when to spend, when to save, when to invest, and when to wait. Most financial losses are not caused by lack of income, but by lack of wisdom in decision making. One wrong decision can consume years of effort. Wisdom protects progress. Wisdom also understands process. Wealth that lasts is built through systems, discipline, and time. Money without wisdom looks for shortcuts. Wisdom respects seasons. It knows that preparation precedes expansion and that growth must be sustained, not rushed. Those who ignore process often experience sudden rises followed by painful falls. Wisdom builds slowly but firmly, ensuring that what is gained can be kept. Another strength of wisdom is discernment. Not every opportunity is profitable, and not every offer is safe. Wisdom sees beyond appearance. It evaluates motives, terms, risks, and long-term impact. Many financial traps appear attractive on the surface but carry hidden costs. Wisdom identifies these dangers early. It teaches a person to say no without guilt and yes without fear. Discernment saves more money than effort alone ever could. Wisdom also governs emotions. Emotional decisions are expensive. Fear causes people to withdraw when they should act. Greed causes people to act when they should wait. Comparison leads to unnecessary spending. Wisdom brings emotional stability. It allows decisions to be made from understanding rather than pressure. A calm mind is one of the greatest financial assets a person can possess. Another dimension of wisdom is understanding value. Wisdom distinguishes between price and worth. It knows that cheap is not always affordable and expensive is not always valuable. Many waste money because they chase appearances rather than substance. Wisdom invests in quality, growth, and learning. It prioritizes assets over liabilities. Over time, this approach compounds into stability and increase. Wisdom also teaches learning. Those who are wise remain teachable. They study, observe, ask questions, and adjust. Financial wisdom grows through experience, reflection, and correction. Pride resists learning and repeats mistakes. Wisdom accepts correction without offense. This humility accelerates growth. Each lesson learned becomes a building block for future success. Another power of wisdom is adaptability. Economies change, industries evolve, and systems shift. Money alone cannot adapt, but wisdom can. Wisdom helps a person recognize change early and respond appropriately. Those who rely only on past success often struggle when conditions change. Wisdom stays alert. It anticipates trends and prepares for transitions. This adaptability preserves relevance and income. Wisdom also builds relationships. Trust is currency. People are more willing to partner, recommend, and support those who demonstrate wisdom. Wise communication, reliability, and integrity attract opportunities that money cannot buy. Many doors open not because of capital, but because of character and competence. Wisdom multiplies access. Another important aspect of wisdom is restraint. Wisdom knows that not everything permissible is beneficial. It teaches delayed gratification. Many financial breakthroughs are lost because of impatience. Wisdom is willing to wait for the right moment. This patience prevents regret and strengthens outcomes. What is built with patience lasts longer than what is rushed. Wisdom also brings peace. Money without wisdom creates anxiety because it lacks direction. Wisdom creates confidence because decisions are intentional. Peace improves focus, health, and productivity. A peaceful mind performs better. This performance increases results. In this way, wisdom indirectly increases income by improving overall effectiveness. True wealth is not measured only by how much money is earned, but by how well life is managed. Wisdom balances work, rest, giving, and growth. It prevents burnout and protects purpose. Money cannot restore lost years or damaged health, but wisdom prevents such losses. It ensures that financial success does not come at the cost of life itself. Wisdom produces wealth because it aligns effort with truth. It turns knowledge into action and action into results. Money follows wisdom naturally. Where wisdom leads, resources respond. This is why wisdom is greater than money. Money answers needs, but wisdom builds futures. When wisdom is embraced, wealth becomes sustainable, meaningful, and enduring. Financial freedom is not a modern idea or a human invention. It is woven into God's redemptive plan for humanity. Redemption was never meant to address the spirit alone while living life bound by lack, fear, and limitation. When God restores a person, he restores their whole life, including their ability to live with dignity, stability, and purpose. Financial freedom is not about excess or pride. It's about liberation from bondage so that life can function as designed. Bondage in finances often manifests as constant anxiety, debt without escape, dependence without growth, and labor due without reward. These conditions limit a person's capacity to serve, give, and advance purpose. God's redemptive work confronts every form of bondage, visible and invisible. Just as redemption breaks the power of sin, it also breaks systems that keep people trapped in perpetual lack. Freedom is part of restoration. Redemption redefines identity. Many financial struggles persist because people see themselves as victims of circumstances rather than redeemed individuals with authority and responsibility. When identity is restored, behavior changes. A redeemed mind no longer accepts limitation as destiny. It begins to seek solutions, wisdom, and growth. This shift in mindset is often the first step toward financial freedom. Another aspect of redemption is restoration of dominion. Humanity was created to manage, cultivate, and multiply resources. Loss of this dominion resulted in toil without fulfillment. Redemption restores capacity to rule wisely rather than struggle endlessly. This does not remove effort, but it removes futility. Work becomes productive instead of draining. Effort begins to yield fruit. Redemptive freedom also addresses fear. Fear is one of the strongest tools of financial bondage. Fear of lack, fear of loss, fear of the future. Redemption replaces fear with trust. Trust allows planning without panic and effort without anxiety. A person who is free from fear makes better decisions. These decisions accumulate into stability over time. Redemption also restores access to wisdom. Freedom is not merely having money, it is knowing how to manage life effectively. Through redemption, a person gains access to guidance, understanding, and discernment. This wisdom helps avoid traps that keep people in cycles of debt and loss. Financial freedom is sustained by wise choices, not sudden windfalls. Another dimension of redemption is release from inherited limitatio. Many people unconsciously carry patterns from family history, poverty, mismanagement, dependency, or financial confusion. Redemption introduces a new lineage. Old patterns lose authority. A person is no longer bound to repeat what they observed growing up. New habits, systems, and outcomes become possible. Redemption also empowers generosity. True financial freedom is not selfish accumulation. It is the ability to give without fear. Fearful people hoard because they believe supply is fragile. Redeemed people give because they trust provision. Generosity does not create lack. It breaks the grip of scarcity thinking. It reminds the heart that provision flows, not stagnates. Financial freedom within redemption also restores dignity. Lack often forces people into compromising positions, unhealthy dependence, or silent shame. Redemption lifts this weight. It restores confidence, voice, and choice. A person who is financially free can say no when necessary and yes when aligned with purpose. Choice is a sign of freedom. Another important element is responsibility. Redemption does not remove accountability, it enhances it. A free person is responsible for growth, stewardship, and impact. God does not free people so they can live carelessly, but so they can live intentionally. Freedom without responsibility leads back to bondage. Redemption teaches balance. Redemptive freedom is often progressive. It rarely happens overnight. God values process because it builds character. Each step toward freedom teaches lessons that protect the future. Impatience often delays freedom. Those who embrace process gain endurance. Endurance leads to stability. Stability leads to expansion. Redemption also restores hope. Many remain financially bound because they no longer believe change is possible. Hopelessness kills initiative. Redemption revives expectation. When hope returns, effort, it turns. When effort is guided by wisdom, progress follows. Hope is not optimism, it is confidence that restoration is possible. Another powerful result of redemption is peace. Financial peace is more than having money, it is freedom from constant worry. Peace allows focus, creativity, and clarity. This mental state improves productivity and decision making, indirectly increasing resources. Peace is both a result and a contributor to freedom. Financial freedom as part of redemption is about living without chains. Chains of fear, debt, limitation, and confusion. Redemption breaks these chains gradually and sustainably. It restores alignment with God's original design for life to flourish. Financial freedom then becomes a tool for service, impact, and purpose, not a source of pride. When redemption is understood holistically, finances are no longer separated from faith. They become part of a restored life. Freedom is not excess, it is sufficiency with purpose. This is the heart of God's redemptive plan. Spiritual authority is the right to enforce heaven's will on earth. And when it is understood and exercised correctly, it produces tangible results, including financial breakthroughs. Many people pray sincerely, but do not see results because they approach prayer from a place of need rather than authority. Authority is not volume or emotion, it is position. When authority is recognized, resistance is confronted and outcomes change. Authority begins with understanding identity. A person who does not know who they are will beg for what they are authorized to command. Financial resistance often persists not because God is silent, but because believers speak without conviction or alignment. Authority flows from relationship, obedience, and alignment with divine order. When identity is settled, confidence replaces hesitation, and prayer shifts from pleading to enforcement. Spiritual authority addresses opposition. Financial stagnation is not always caused by lack of effort or opportunity. Sometimes it is sustained by invisible resistance, patterns, cycles, and barriers that repeat despite hard work. Authority confronts these patterns. It declares that certain outcomes are no longer permitted. When authority is exercised, limitations lose legitimacy. What was tolerated for years can be broken in moments. Authority also governs access. Doors that remain closed despite qualification and effort often require authority to open. There are gates controlled by systems, people, and unseen influences. Authority does not manipulate, it commands alignment. When spiritual authority is applied, favor is released, helpers are positioned, and access is granted. This is why some experience sudden openings after long delays, not because effort increased, but because authority was enforced. Another aspect of authority is resistance management. Every level of increase attracts resistance. The absence of resistance does not always mean peace. Sometimes it means stagnation. Authority equips a person to confront resistance without fear. Financial breakthroughs are often preceded by pressure. Authority ensures that pressure does not overwhelm progress. It stabilizes movement during opposition. Authority also deals with cycles. Many people experience repeated financial patterns, starting well, then collapsing, earning more, then losing it, escaping debt, then returning. These cycles are not always logical. Authority breaks cycles by confronting their spiritual root. Once a cycle is broken, effort begins to yield lasting results. Authority turns temporary wins into sustained progress. Another dimension of authority is declaration. Words matter, not as superstition, but as alignment. Authority speaks in agreement with divine truth. Consistent negative speech undermines authority. A person who constantly declares lack, fear, or defeat weakens their position. Authority speaks clarity, expectation, and truth. These declarations shape decisions and responses, gradually changing outcomes. Authority also requires discipline. Authority without discipline becomes reckless. True authority is exercised within boundaries. Financial authority does not justify carelessness or entitlement. It works alongside wisdom, stewardship, and responsibility. When discipline is absent, authority is compromised. God entrusts authority to those who can manage it responsibly. Authority also restores confidence. Financial struggle often damages self-belief. Authority rebuilds confidence by reminding a person that they are not powerless. Confidence influences posture, communication, and decisions. This confidence attracts opportunities and respect. People respond differently to those who carry authority. This response can open doors that effort alone cannot. Another important role of authority is enforcement of boundaries. Many financial losses occur because boundaries are weak. People give where they should not, spend where they should not, and commit where they should wait. Authority empowers a person to say no without guilt and yes without fear. Boundaries protect resources and preserve focus. Authority also aligns effort with heaven. It does not replace work, it empowers it. Effort without authority struggles. Authority without effort becomes passive. When both work together, progress accelerates. This alignment removes unnecessary delays and frustration. Work becomes effective rather than exhausting. Authority grows with use. Many avoid exercising authority because of fear of disappointment. But authority matures through practice. Each time resistance is confronted and overcome, confidence increases. Over time, a person becomes spiritually assertive without becoming aggressive. This balance is critical for sustained breakthroughs. Another aspect of authority is persistence. Authority is not a one-time action. Some barriers fall immediately, others require consistency. Authority remains firm even when results delay. Persistence proves conviction. Over time, resistance weakens and gives way. Many give up moments before breakthrough because they misunderstand authority as instant rather than sustained. Spiritual authority enforces financial breakthroughs by establishing divine order. Where chaos once ruled, it confronts resistance, breaks cycles, opens access, and restores confidence. It does not glorify self, it aligns with heaven. When authority is exercised with humility, wisdom, and discipline, finances respond. Breakthrough is not always about receiving more. Sometimes it is about removing what resists. Authority does that work. When resistance is removed, provision flows naturally. This is the power of spiritual authority in the realm of finances. Generational limitations are patterns that repeat across family lines, often without explanation. They manifest as recurring financial struggle, chronic debt, failed businesses, unstable income, or an invisible ceiling that seems impossible to break. Many people work harder than those before them, yet arrive at the same outcomes. This repetition is not coincidence, it is continuity. Prayer becomes the instrument through which these patterns are confronted and dismantled. Generational limitations are sustained by agreements, beliefs, habits, and spiritual permissions passed down consciously or unconsciously. Some are reinforced by words spoken over children, others by models of survival that replace vision, and some by fear that becomes normalized. Over time, these patterns feel natural, even inevitable. Prayer interrupts this sense of inevitability by introducing divine authority into inherited systems. Prayer is not denial of responsibility. It is confrontation of root causes. While education, discipline, and strategy are necessary, They are often insufficient when limitations are spiritual in nature. Prayer goes beyond behavior and reaches foundations. It challenges what has been accepted for generations and declares that a different outcome is possible. When prayer is engaged with understanding, it breaks permissions that sustain limitation. One of the first things prayer does is expose patterns. Many people are unaware that what they experience is inherited. They blame themselves entirely, unaware that they are fighting an old battle with new tools. Prayer brings awareness. Awareness changes approach. Once a pattern is identified, it can be addressed intentionally rather than emotionally. Light weakens the power of repetition. Prayer also redefines identity. Generational limitations thrive when people see themselves as extensions of their past. Statements like this is how our family has reinforced bondage. Prayer replaces inherited identity with redeemed identity. A person begins to see themselves as a starting point, not a continuation. This shift is powerful. When identity changes, expectation changes. When expectation changes, behavior changes. Behavior then produces new results. Another effect of prayer is breaking fear-based decisions. Many inherited financial struggles are rooted in fear. Fear of risk, fear of loss, fear of success. These fears are often passed down through stories of failure and warning. Prayer confronts fear at its root and replaces it with trust. Trust allows courage. Courage enables movement. Movement breaks stagnation. Prayer also confronts cycles of self-sabotage. Some people get close to financial stability, then make decisions that undo progress. This is not always lack of discipline. Sometimes it is an internal resistance to exceeding familiar limits. Prayer heals this internal conflict. It aligns the mind with expansion rather than survival. When the inner resistance is healed, progress stabilizes. Generational limitations also affect perception of money. Some families associate money with pain, conflict, or loss. This association creates subconscious avoidance of wealth. Prayer heals these associations. It redefines money as a tool, not a threat. When the emotional weight is removed, healthy engagement with finances becomes possible. Another critical role of prayer is releasing forgiveness. Bitterness, resentment, and unresolved family wounds can block progress. These emotions anchor a person to the past. Prayer releases forgiveness, not to excuse harm, but to free the future. Forgiveness breaks emotional agreements that tie a person to inherited outcomes. Freedom often begins where forgiveness is applied. Prayer also establishes new spiritual authority. Instead of reacting to patterns, a person begins to command change. This authority is not arrogance, it is alignment. Prayer declares that certain outcomes are no longer acceptable. When authority is exercised consistently, resistance weakens. What once seemed permanent becomes temporary. Breaking generational limitations through prayer also requires persistence. These patterns were built over time and often resist change. Persistence proves conviction. Each prayer reinforces a new agreement. Over time, the old loses power. Many give up too early, mistaking delay for denial. Persistence distinguishes momentary emotion from genuine transformation. Prayer also creates accountability. When a person prays for freedom, they become responsible for their choices. Prayer sharpens discernment, making wrong decisions uncomfortable. This discomfort is protective. It prevents returning to familiar but destructive paths. Prayer does not remove responsibility, it strengthens it.
The other effect of prayer is opening new pathways.
When old routes are blocked by limitation, prayer reveals alternatives. Ideas emerge. Relationships shift, opportunities appear. These are not random, they are responses to alignment. Prayer positions a person to recognize and pursue new paths without fear. Breaking generational limitations also benefits future generations. When a pattern is broken, it does not return automatically. Children inherit new norms, new expectations, and new possibilities. Prayer today becomes protection tomorrow. This legacy is one of the most powerful outcomes of spiritual intervention. Prayer breaks generational limitations by replacing inherited agreements with divine truth. It shifts identity, heals fear, releases forgiveness, restores authority, and establishes new patterns. This is not instant perfection, but it is real freedom. When prayer is engaged with understanding and consistency, what once defined a family no longer controls it. A person becomes the interruption in the cycle. The story changes, the ceiling lifts, and a new financial narrative begins, not by chance, but by deliberate spiritual engagement. Thanksgiving is more than a ritual or polite expression. It is a spiritual principle that sustains increase and secures favor. Many believers pray for financial breakthroughs, but overlook gratitude. They focus on the need rather than acknowledging what has already been supplied. Thanksgiving shifts the heart, aligns the spirit with heaven, and opens channels that fear, doubt, or entitlement often block. It is not about how much one has, but about recognizing God's faithfulness in every situation. A heart of thanksgiving draws attention to what is present rather than what is absent. This shift in focus rewires perception instead of opposites. Sing over lack. A grateful heart notices resources, opportunities, relationships, and talents that are already available. Often, the breakthrough a person seeks is hidden in what has already been given. Gratitude unveils these hidden blessings and allows them to be multiplied. Thanksgiving also changes the atmosphere. The spiritual realm responds to the state of the heart. Fear, anxiety, and negativity create tension that repels increase. Gratitude creates harmony, peace, and expectation. It signals to heaven that a person trusts God's provision and recognizes his sovereignty. This atmosphere attracts favor, opens doors, and positions a person for financial increase. In essence, thanksgiving is not passive. It is activating a spiritual law. Another powerful aspect of thanksgiving is humility. By acknowledging God as the source of all provision, a person recognizes their dependence on divine supply. Humility is the gateway to increase. Pride, entitlement, and self-reliance, on the other hand, repel it. A thankful heart submits to divine authority, understanding that every resource, opportunity, and relationship is ultimately orchestrated by God. When humility is coupled with gratitude, favor flows naturally. Thanksgiving also strengthens faith. Gratitude is an expression of trust before the manifestation of results. When a person thanks God for unseen blessings, they are affirming belief in his ability to provide. This act of faith attracts provision because it aligns the heart with expectation rather than desperation. Faith without gratitude is often shallow. Gratitude without faith is hollow. Together, they create a powerful spiritual posture. Gratitude also protects increase. Many people receive financial opportunities or sudden provision, but lose them because they take them for granted. A heart that recognizes God's hand maintains respect, discipline, and steward. Thanksgiving reminds a person that blessings are not entitlement. They are gifts entrusted to be managed wisely. Mismanagement or neglect often results when gratitude is absent. Another dimension of thanksgiving is its ability to transform relationships. A grateful person often treats people differently, with humility, respect, and generosity. This opens social doors that directly or indirectly affect financial opportunities. People are more willing to partner, collaborate, and assist those who demonstrate genuine appreciation. Thanksgiving thus amplifies both spiritual and practical networks that support provision. Thanksgiving also combats negativity and complaint. Complaining focuses on lack and amplifies it. Gratitude focuses on sufficiency and multiplies it. Spiritual energy follows attention. When attention is placed on what God has done, faith increases and fear decreases. This mental and spiritual alignment prepares a person to receive more rather than pushing it away through doubt or resentment. Another important effect of thanksgiving is resilience. Life is full of challenges, delays, and setbacks. A grateful heart endures because it remembers what has already been provided. Gratitude creates a sense of stability and contentment that is not dependent on circumstances. This resilience allows a person to navigate financial storms without panic, maintaining focus and action towards solutions. The breakthrough often comes to those who persist with a thankful heart, not just those who work tirelessly. Thanksgiving also magnifies blessings. What is recognized multiplies. By acknowledging even small victories, increases are reinforced. Heaven responds to acknowledgement. Spiritual laws reward recognition. Small resources, when appreciated, become seeds for larger provision. Conversely, unrecognized blessings often go unused or wasted. Gratitude ensures that what is received is optimized, setting the stage for exponential growth. Thanksgiving fosters long-term alignment with God's principles. Those who habitually thank God develop a lifestyle of awareness, stewardship, and faith. Financial discipline, patience, and strategic decision-making become easier because gratitude shapes perspective. A thankful heart sees value, opportunity, and potential where others see limitation, loss, or impossibility. Thanksgiving sustains joy, which is itself a catalyst for favor. A joyful heart attracts opportunities, inspires creativity, and draws people to support a person's mission. Financial freedom is not just accumulation, it is a byproduct of a life lived in alignment, faith, and gratitude. Thanksgiving ensures that every blessing is recognized, celebrated, and multiplied, creating a cycle of increase that is spiritual, practical, and enduring. Thanksgiving is not optional for those seeking financial breakthrough. It is essential. It shifts perception, aligns the heart with heaven, amplifies faith, opens doors, protects increase, fosters resilience, and magnifies blessings. A life anchored in gratitude is positioned to receive, sustain, and multiply provision. Where thanksgiving is practiced consistently, financial stagnation loses power, and supernatural favor flows naturally. When we examine these 10 key principles together, a clear pattern emerges. Financial transformation is not merely about working harder or chasing opportunities. It is about aligning with divine order. God is the ultimate source of all provision, and access to his supply is unlocked through spiritual alignment, wisdom, obedience, covenant, authority, and gratitude. Each principle works like a key, opening doors that effort alone cannot force open. Financial breakthroughs begin in the spirit. Light dispels ignorance, exposing hidden barriers and illuminating the steps necessary for progress. Covenants with God authorize supernatural supply, while obedience ensures that the believer is positioned to receive it. Wisdom guides decisions, stewardship, and strategy, preventing temporary gains from turning into losses. Redemption restores freedom from limitations, fear, and generational patterns that would otherwise constrain progress. Spiritual authority enforces divine order, confronting resistance and breaking cycles that repeat across time and circumstance. Prayer, when focused and intentional, breaks generational limitations, replacing old patterns with new pathways of increase. Finally, thanksgiving sustains these breakthroughs, cultivating humility, joy, resilience, and faith, qualities that protect and multiply what is received. Together, these principles reveal that lasting financial change is holistic. It is not only about income or accumulation, but about identity, mindset, behavior, and alignment with God's purpose. When these truths are applied consistently, resources flow naturally, opportunities align, and favor becomes tangible. Financial freedom becomes a byproduct of a life lived with understanding, discipline, and faith, rather than a struggle fought in isolation. Ultimately, financial breakthroughs are both spiritual and practical. They are the result of positioning, obedience, wisdom, and gratitude. By embracing these principles, a believer is no longer at the mercy of circumstances or systems. They move with confidence, authority, and expectation. KN. Owing that provision responds to alignment with divine order. Financial stagnation is replaced by growth, limitation by freedom, and uncertainty by peace. This is the heart of financial transformation, a life that reflects not only abundance, but alignment. A life where effort and faith converge, and where blessings are received, sustained, and multiplied. When these keys are applied, finances are no longer a source of anxiety, but a reflection of divine favor, strategic wisdom, and faithful stewardship. The journey toward financial freedom begins in the spirit, is reinforced through action, and is sustained through gratitude, creating a cycle of provision that is lasting and transformative.